water infrastructure is crumbling, and the ANC-led coalition government is doing nothing about it.
Honestly, after the timing, it just feels a little bit off. I mean, we haven't had water for weeks, and now finally action's happening after the protest.
Buddy, they are all here. We have your mayor here.
So what's the plan? Tell us the plan. No, little speak. What is the plan? What is the plan? They're always
and now they're running away. They're running away because they don't have anything to account for. They don't. Look at how they're all running away, turning their backs on people. Look how they're running away. Look how they're running away.
Think that if there is no water, I had to go to a certain hotel so that I have to go to my commitment. We also go through the same inconvenience like any other person.
Many residents are having to find alternative water supplies, but of course health facilities, clinics, hospitals in the province are also going to have to contend with this issue.
And in fact, the staff shortages, what they found is that Helen Joseph Hospital was upgraded to a tertiary hospital, yet they've got the staff establishment of a smaller hospital.
A hospital stay should bring healing, not more illness. But at Gauteng's public hospitals, thousands of patients are picking up serious infections after they're admitted.
Tembisa Hospital is notoriously known for chronic understaffing, a lack of essential resources and weak management.
There's no stage that there was a person that slept on the floor. Or we said this one must get put here. And I've not seen that.
You have not seen it?
I've not seen it. If you have seen it, I've not seen the people sleeping on the floor, because even now we're buying beds. In fact, we're even taking some of the beds to the clinics. Last week I was in Vereeniging and I was distributing 250 beds, getting the new ones. They're still new, even those ones.
To you, residents of Gauteng. My name is Msimanga. I'm the leader of the official opposition in Gauteng. And I wish I could stand here and say that I want to greet you all, in the best of times, but I think Gauteng is facing the worst of times. We are sitting here where Gauteng is actually then hanging on a thread. Under the leadership of Premier Lesufi, and the collapsed system of delivery that has actually then taken away from what people have been dreaming about when they talk about Gauteng. With us today, we have leaders from different caucuses. I see Ntate Duncan Mthembu. I see Tai sitting there. I see from Lesedi, I see Sage that is here. I see Halle that is here. I see from Midval and Deputy Taxera, who's a shining example of what good government is all about. I see Ntate Mugete, who is the mayoral candidate of Lesedi. I see the leader of the Johannesburg caucus, Belinda, that is here. I see quite a number of, did I miss? Oh, I see Carlo that is also there, that is sitting in the back. I want to welcome all of you. I see members of the legislature that are here. I see councillors that are here and members of the public that want to then know what is the state of Gauteng as things stand. I want to start off by perhaps putting a few things straight out to then say that when Nelson Mandela started in 1994, he wanted to ensure that there's accountability when we speak about what government is all about, what government has done, what government is doing, and what it actually then has in terms of its plans going forward. This has been a noble prize, and this is how the state of the nation was actually then conceptualized and put together. That moved into having a number of state of the provinces address and state of municipalities address. But I don't think that it was ever envisioned to be just a glorious event where people show up in suits and walk out the red carpet. It was supposed to be a day where people are honestly accounting for what happened in the previous year, talk about honestly what is happening right now, and then talk about what the plans going forward. But what we have found in the last couple of years is that it has gradually grown to be more of a storytelling of parallel universe. The story that gets to be told time and time again is very different to the lived realities of everyday person on the street. Crime in Gauteng is getting out of hand. You have more and more people right now that are feeling unsafe. More and more people now that are saying they don't even trust that even if they do go and lay a complaint or criminal case with the police that anything will happen. You have more and more people that are saying that service delivery is something that they're just dreaming about and it's something that is not happening. That is the lived reality of the people of Gauteng. Shockingly, up to last week, I still had people that had been calling me and say that children, as we speak, are not yet in school as yet. That is the state of where we find ourselves in the province. But that's not what you're going to hear next week. What you're going to hear is a glorified, glossy tale of what is it that they've been able to then achieve, which when you then contrast with what the people are saying and what the people are experiencing on the ground are two different things. As I said, crime is increasing, water and electricity outages are becoming more frequent. Our roads are littered with potholes, fading road marks or non-existing road marks, and sinkholes have become the order of the day. The streets and homes in various parts of our provinces have become flooded with raw sewage. I was in Mfuleni and I was saying, but how does even the mayor live in the same street where sewer is literally flowing and has actually now become green on the street that the mayor is sitting on or staying on? And then it seems to be business as normal. But yet again, what have we come to expect? As Einstein has said, the measure of madness is doing the same thing and expecting different results. 30 years we have seen how government has actually dragged things further and further and further to the ground. One thing that became very refreshing was that Panyaza at least admitted that they failed the people of Mfuleni, that they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan like the people of Midvaal have a plan. A plan that is not only for now, but a plan that is 50 years ahead. The only municipality that has seen it fit to start building reservoirs, not because they need reservoirs now, but they build reservoirs so that they are able to then take care of the future. No wonder you are able to then attract the investment that is being attracted in Midvaal. And yet you'll have the premier that want to then go and hijack those same plans and those same success stories. The G20 has come and gone, and the honeymoon is over. We said right at the beginning that this is just a honeymoon, and this is just putting over makeup over the ugly pig that is an administration that has actually fallen apart, and service delivery that is actually then almost granted to a halt. What have we seen? We have seen streets that have been cleaned, people removed from the streets. We have seen traffic lights being fixed. We have seen street lights that have been fixed. We have seen other members of the South African police services, even taken from other provinces to come here to make it look like it is indeed a government that is working. But I promise you, go and walk the streets of Johannesburg right now and see the shame that has actually then come up again. The streets are as littered as they've ever been before. Street lights, are not working again. Potholes are a thing of I don't know, I don't want to call it a thing of beauty, but are a thing to behold. I have seen the mayoral candidate of Johannesburg chilling in a pool of water. That is also a pothole that has been sitting there for quite a long time. I've seen councillors that have tried in vain to then get services sorted out in that. But this is the lived experiences of the people of Gauteng who are saying on a daily basis, we cannot continue to be told to pay for rates and taxes, to be paying for services, yet we are not getting the service that we're supposed to be getting. The people of Gauteng who are saying that we are now becoming worse than ever before, where we used to have water that was running out of our taps. Right now, you go and ask them, they tell you we are fortunate if we have water in a week for more than 2 days. If you go to certain areas around Gauteng, you'll get to then understand that the crisis have actually now reached levels that like never before. But what has been the response of the Premier? The response of the Premier has been to tell the people of Gauteng they must go to hotels and take showers if they need to then take a shower. That has been the response. The DA have been saying for quite a long time that we now need to then ensure that you have an infrastructure master plan, and I'll talk to that a little bit later on, that talks to how do we fix the issues of water, how do we fix the issues of electricity, how do we fix the issues of road infrastructure, which if you do, then tells you and tells investors that you're serious about attracting them, you're serious about better lives for all, you're serious about ensuring that there's employment. And we'll talk to a number of these things going forward. During the 2025 State of the Province address, Premier Lesufi identified 13 key priorities that needed to be addressed. And he said these things included the infrastructure issues that have now reached crisis level. He said it himself. But can we then ask what has actually then transpired in the last 12 months after he made that announcement? Water shortage and infrastructure failure has actually then even gotten worse. This was one of his priorities. He said cable theft and vandalism are things that are going to receive attention from his government. Go ask municipalities how much more cables have they lost in the last 12 months. He said that there will not be any non-functioning traffic lights in Gauteng. According to the answers that we ask questions for, now government needs over 200 million to make sure that they fix these traffic lights. Now, what have they done to then start addressing these things? He said that there won't be any potholes right now in Gauteng. In fact, I want to put it to you that in certain municipalities, if you start driving straight, then people say you are drunk, because then you will be hitting all the potholes along the way. But this is where we find ourselves in Gauteng. Electricity, in particular load shedding and load reduction in our communities will be a thing of the past. I urge you to go to places like Soshanguve, Block BB, DD, Block Y, Block X, and see how people are actually then lucky to have electricity more than a day in a week. And then you then ask yourself, has he really prioritize those things that he says were a problem, or did he just gloss over them and give the people of Gauteng false hope as they have been doing for so many years? He spoke about the services at our hospitals and clinics that is going to receive much attention. Yet you have an MEC that says, no, people enjoy sleeping on the floors instead of sleeping on the beds. But this talks about the uncaring attitude. And they can go on, we can go on about how most of the ANC leaders have actually then exposed themselves in the kind of thinking. Gwede Mantashe saying people are lazy, when they're saying they're looking for jobs and things like that. But that's the state that we find ourselves in. People have stopped caring. People have actually shown that they've never put the residents of Gauteng first, but have put themselves first. There's shortages of school. Panyaza had promised that he was going to build more schools, that we're going to have more children that are going to be in schools. But what has transpired? We now have more and more of our learners that find themselves outside of school or have to then travel very far. But not only travel very far, endanger their own lives, because now they have to be transported in overloaded vehicles. Unfortunately, we'll have to then also at this point remember the 13 children that died in that horrific accident in the Vaal, because parents are then forced to make a tough choice of then sending their children far from where they are staying. And the question that we now need to be asking is, what happened to the schools that are there in the vicinities, that have been built, that haven't been maintained, that now parents cannot see the children going to those schools? The question that we should be asking is, what has happened to then ensuring that the teachers are in classroom teaching when they're supposed to be teaching, instead of doing union activities when they're supposed to be teaching? This is what has pushed a number of parents to then go look somewhere else where there is better management. And this is something that Panyaza said that they were going to address, but unfortunately hasn't been addressed. Last week we have another accident that took place just in Pretoria West, where again 18 children out of a venture. You can imagine a venture bus, 18 children coming out of there, and the driver of that vehicle didn't even have a driver's license. So was actually then turning on the highway to run away from cops, and unfortunately was hit by an oncoming car, and the children sustained injuries there. But this is kind of things that we are now experiencing in Gauteng that don't get to be resolved. Yet these were part of the so-called priorities. We have failing infrastructure around our CBDs. Our CBDs are supposed to be the engines of the economic growth and excitement. But I promise you, go and walk, as we've done with Belinda and Mark Moriarty and a number of guys. We have walked in the streets of Johannesburg Central. We have walked with Refill and them in Kempton Park and the surrounding areas. We have walked around the streets and seen the decay that is there. When we engage with business people, they say one thing. They say we are now getting closer to closing our businesses here, if not closed already. Because nobody wants to then come here and do business because they are fearing for their own safety. And the business people are also saying, sometimes we sit for days and weeks without electricity or without water. We have to now put generators out there, which push our cost of doing business higher, and somebody will have to then carry that cost. Who then gets to carry the cost? It is the end user at the end of the day. And what does that do? It then pushes people away and they make businesses unattractive. This is what the people of Gauteng are saying they're experiencing on an ongoing basis. Hijacked buildings, as Panyaza had said, is something that will be addressed. Can you tell us how many businesses or how many syndicates has he actually then dismantled? People's houses that had actually then been hijacked. Properties in the CBDs that have actually now been hijacked. And in fact, we've had more fires because of these hijacked buildings that has been taking place ever since he's made this announcement. But again, you're not going to hear that. You're going to hear glossy stories about how well they're doing. Yet the people on the ground are experiencing a different, delivery or lack thereof. Doing the same thing, as I said, cannot be identified as anything else, but can be identified as madness. When you are actually then using the same people that have failed to improve the people's life, and you're leaving them to be in charge of then giving people a better life, then you're not getting anywhere. And this is why we have said for a number of times, and these are plans that we've actually then even put to Premier Lesufi and to the administration. Let's look at cleaning this administration so that you are able to then capable people to do what needs to be done. What does he do? He goes and hires the same people that are being investigated by the SIU. He goes and hires and pays people salaries, huge exorbitant salaries, people who have actually then been proven time and time again to not be fit to be holding office. We have now somebody who has actually been suspended. While we said in the first instance, don't hire this person because there's a case against this person with the SIU. They hired the person, made that person responsible for health, and Jack will be able to then talk about that if you are willing to then listen. Where we have had this person being involved in additional issues of Tembisa and other things that have taken place, the Tembisa hospital and other things that have taken place. While we said, don't hire this person, Panyaza insisted on hiring the person, and then they suspended the person and put the person on special leave while enjoying full perks and full salaries. And then afterwards, when they're thinking that everything is done, Nicodemously brings the person back into the administration, changes the portfolio, and then put this person to be now in charge of COCTA. Now, are you listening to the municipalities? Are you listening to the Auditor General who is saying municipalities are failing, municipalities are struggling, and they need intervention from a provincial level? And you go and take somebody that has actually failed, and then you make this person to be responsible for assisting the municipalities to then turn around. This talks to an uncaring government. This talks to a person that doesn't have an idea of what is it that they are doing. We have been on the road talking about the 177 cases that we have been asking for investigation to take place. Mary Philo has been at the heart of it, Mike and the other colleagues have been at the heart of it, where we have been saying we need to then get to the bottom of what has happened to millions and billions of rands, whether we're talking about money that was supposed to have assisted during a COVID time, over 500 million that was spent on a hospital that not a single person has ever even used before. We need to be talking about the monies that were paid to ghost NGOs where they were supposed to be providing school uniforms to children who are vulnerable, that even today some of them have never even seen a pair of shoes coming from those NGOs. We need to be talking about the scholar transport monies that have been paid, but yet learners have never even seen those buses ever being in those areas. And we can go on. NGOs that have been promised money never received any of the money that they were supposed to be receiving and assisting our vulnerable communities. And yet, when we say we need to then get to the bottom of this, and we need to then ensure that we are able to then bring the officials and the politicians that are responsible for this, Panyaza has continuously refused to allow, the sun to shine over these things. Has actually then refused to a point where we had actually taken the matter, to the information regulator. We're still dealing with the information regulator. And, as a matter of fact, we are now at the point where a court of law now becomes an option. Because what they do is that they don't mind stealing. They don't mind, mismanaging funds. And when you ask for accountability, they'll tell you that the prevention of private information is why they cannot give you, the information that you need. But we are asking, is it to the greater good of the community not to know what is actually happening with the taxes that they're paying, or is it in the interest of communities to then know what is happening? That's what we want to then deal with. And that's what we want to then be exposing. And this is why we are saying that you're not going to hear the truth about what is actually then happening during the so-called State of the Province address. We are now sitting at a space where, again, we have been saying there needs to be an implementation of the infrastructure master plan. The implementation of the infrastructure master plan, and we are sitting here with an engineer in the name of Mark Moriarty, who have been able to, with other experts, been able to then put a plan together that says that we cannot continue to look at infrastructure in Gauteng in isolation. If you go and ask municipalities will not be able to then deal with the backlogs on their own. Johannesburg on its own needs over 200 billion to be able to then deal with its infrastructure. Even if they stop doing anything at all and only concentrate on fixing the infrastructure, it will take them decades to be able to then get that right. Tshwane is sitting in the same predicament as well, and I'm sure all these other municipalities. But what we have been saying is that there needs to be an integrated plan from a provincial perspective that brings in all the municipalities that are able to then come around, mayors and municipal managers that are able to then sit around the table and say, these are the plans that we do have in terms of our roads, in terms of our water, in terms of our sewer plants, in terms of our building reservoirs, in terms of electricity infrastructure. That's what we now need to then do. And the province needs to then say, how do we then assist municipalities in terms of raising money to deal with these things and make sure that all these things are then being addressed as speedily as we possibly can. This is why I say that Gauteng is sitting on an edge of complete collapse, because if you go to municipalities like in the West Rand, not Mohale, what's the other one? Merafong. You go to Merafong and you ask, what is your plan? Where are the blueprints of where the infrastructure is? You have a city manager, municipal manager that looks you straight in the eye in public and say, we don't even have it. We don't know where the infrastructure is. That is the state of where we find ourselves in municipalities, where you don't even know what you have. Then how do you know what is it that you now need to then fix? And this is why we have been saying to Ntate Mama Bolo, let us do an audit of what we have in the province, all the municipalities, know how old this infrastructure is, know how much is it going to cost us to be able to then repair and replace some of this infrastructure, and work on a plan that is a province plan. You cannot have municipalities do their own things and expect that they will be able to then turn the corner. Mfuleni is a great example of that. They can now not even fill trucks to go and collect waste. How do you think that they're going to be able to then fix the sewer lines that they have there? How do you think that they're going to be able to then fix the leaking water pipes that are there? How do you think that they're going to be able to then fix the tripped or the damaged electricity lines that are there? These are some of the things that the people are experiencing on the ground. And when we come up with an alternative plan and say, this is what you can then use to be able to then get things right, they don't want to listen to that. I want you to go and visit areas like Selby, Kensington, Benz Valley, Johannesburg CBD, Gauteng Estate, Norwood, Killarney, Orange Grove, Ivory Park Extension 12, Radio Corp, Eldorado Park Extension 7-9, Kliptown, Klapspruit West, Richmond, Rosemore, Brixton, Heidel Crane, Wilder Park, Melville, Marentia, Greenside, Westcliff, Parktown West, Midrand, Diepkloof, Orlando, Attridgeville, Sourceville. You visit areas like Tembisa, certain parts of Tembisa, certain parts of Benoni, and see how people on a daily basis now have to rely on buckets to go and stand in front of tankers to be able to then get water. And tell me this is where we now need to then be going. And if indeed the so-called priorities by Premier Lesufi are things that are getting serious attention and have been responded to. When we asked, we were told that 44% of our traffic lights are not working in the province. 44% of those. And over 200 million is going to be needed in order to be able to then fix those. And yet, we had spent billions when the visitors were coming here and we were told that we're heading in the right direction. And these are things that are going to be sustained even beyond the G20. The G20 is come and gone. We are now back to square one. We're having sinkholes all over. One of the biggest one being the R563 in Krugersdorp. That still hasn't been fixed. And Panyaza went and stood in front of the sinkhole and claimed that within 6 months this sinkhole will be fixed. Where are we right now? It's actually even getting worse. Go and look at the R25 just in Kempton Park. Go and look at the danger that is there. I went there with a number of our colleagues. That thing is now over 100 meters deep. We have found bodies there that people have told us nowadays actually been used to then dump dead bodies there. That's what this government has actually then gotten to be doing. In fact, when we were told that there will be a pothole brigade that will ensure that within 78 hours all potholes will be responded to. We were told that there is now a response team in Johannesburg, the bomb squad, that will be able to then jump into action whenever they need assistance. But what has that translated to? We are now sitting with 199 million rand that has been paid for people who are claiming damages because of potholes across the province, with an additional 988 more cases that are still pending. So you can see that this is going to mount out to billions that will still now need to then be paid. Yet we are told that there is something done about it. But there's another issue that I want to then talk to at this point in time, and that is the issue of you cannot talk about dignity for our people if people cannot find a way of earning a living. More and more people find themselves unemployed, and unfortunately more and more of our young people in Gauteng are finding themselves more unemployable, because it has been proven that the more you stay out of a work environment, the more likely you are not going to be able to then find work. The last survey that has been released, or the report, has shown that we have now lost an additional 56,000 jobs in the last quarter. And this is now growing because there's no clear plan in terms of how do we then arrest this. Now we've heard Panyaza talking about the so-called Nasi Spani and how they're able to then turn around the corner. But what does that really mean? Even when they're talking about the stipends that they're giving, young people, even the EPWP jobs that they say that they're putting out there, it hasn't really translated into meaningful jobs and people earning a living out of that. In fact, in certain instances, it has actually then proven to be a hazard to the people. Go and ask Amapanyaza that we have said was an illegal activity from the get-go, and he insisted on that, and he had to actually then take the public protector to come out and put a report. But yet you've had some of these people, the Mapanyazas, that had been attacked, that had been shot at, that some actually have died. And it has actually been hidden that some have died during them doing their work, that they've actually then died. But this is something that never gets to be reported. That's what the people of Gauteng are experiencing. You then have the Department of Infrastructure Development that says that it will now prioritize finalizing projects. Yet you have billions of projects that have stalled, and actually in certain instances have regressed to a point where you will have to then start from scratch. That means that not only do you have lost opportunities, but you have wasted billions of rands of taxpayers' money. We were promised that there was going to be a new project management team that is going to ensure that we're able to then fast track the rolling out of some of this infrastructure development, and yet we are now continuously seeing more and more regression. You can talk to Eva du Plessis will tell you about what they've said they will do about the roads, what they said they will do around Melrose, Montrose, and the infrastructure that is there, and how this has actually then failed to then proceed or to to be completed, even in the year that Panyaza said that they will be able to expedite the fixing of some of this infrastructure. We have been told that, again, there is going to be, attention that is going to be given in terms of education as well, that they're going to fast-track the building of schools, that they're going to fast-track, delivering of services that are aimed at education level. Sergio Dos Santos will tell you that what we have now found is that not only have they failed to place some of the learners, but in fact what they've done now is to cut the budget by 64%. So now they had said that there should be an integration of schools, which we've agreed with. They had said that they are going to subsidize some of the schools so that schools are able to then accommodate more learners. They must build more classrooms, whether it's maybe sometimes containers, what they call temporary, housing in the schools so that learners can come in there. And they say that they will put money for that. And what they've done now is they've cut 64% of that money, which means now that the schools are not going to be adequately be able to then must sustain themselves. They will actually, in certain instances, have the electricity cut, as we would have seen in Centurion that has taken place, as we would have seen in a number of areas where the municipalities have gone and cut the electricity of the schools. It means that you're going to now have kids that are traveling from far to come to schools, but will not be able to get the nutrition that they need in the morning. It means that you're going to have more and more learners that are becoming desperate, and you're going to have an increase in dropouts, in terms of school attendance. This is where the people of Gauteng are finding themselves on an ongoing basis. We are now saying that it needs to then stop. We now need to then reprioritize and make sure that we fund this. We now need to make sure that the schools that have been built, that have been left neglected, are now being finalized, and that we're able to then place learners closer to where they live so that learners can walk to school. Because that's what's supposed to be all about. You are not supposed to have a school more than 5 kilometers away from where you stay so that you're able to then walk. But as things stand right now, you have learners that have to leave home at 5:30 in the morning to be able to then get to a school, and traveling again in some of these called road coffins that, you don't know if your child will return in the afternoon, if anything of that nature. But we have said a number of things before, and we have seen how these things have actually then fallen on deaf ears. One of the critical issues that we've also been raising, and Panyaza seems to be glossing over it, and this is at the center, the nub of why government is failing. The issue of corruption in Gauteng cannot go unattended. More and more money is being spent, and more money is actually being lost because of corruption that is taking place. We have heard the ANC talking about 600 million that have exchanged hands during their regional congresses. And you ask yourself, where's that money coming from? So if they're able to then spend money just to secure their regional congresses, it means that there's money that is to be made. And this is why people are willing to invest so much. It means that people are willing to get involved in corrupt activities. But when we talk about corruption, it manifests itself in so many many ways. We're now sitting in Gauteng where the issues of the water tankers becomes an everyday challenge. Yet municipalities are spending billions on securing these water tankers. So we're now going to service providers and making sure that there's water tankers everywhere instead of fixing the infrastructure. And we know that some of these people, these water mafias, are actually responsible for the collapse of this infrastructure. And municipalities, or those that are in municipalities and the province, are doing very little to make sure that we're able to then address this. I was shocked to find that almost $1 billion was spent in Tshwane alone in the last year in terms of the water tankers. I shudder to think how much has been spent in Johannesburg. I shudder to think what it means for the people of Makosu, who have to now almost on a permanent basis rely on water tankers. But this talks to the corruption that has now become so endemic in our government. We have seen, again, as I said, how the government has played musical chairs instead of then dealing with the issues of corrupt officials or officials that are implicated in wrongdoing. If you don't believe me, just go and look at what the Madlanga Commission is now revealing. On a daily basis, I think even the people of Gauteng, the people of South Africa, have just become so immune, they are not shocked anymore because of the things that are coming out. But we are saying that is the state of where we find ourselves, and this is something that needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency. We now need to then get to the bottom of dealing with corrupt officials. That is the only way that we'll be able to then provide solutions. We need to implement an infrastructure master plan. We now need to then do a proper audit of the infrastructure that is there, do a proper audit of the officials that are there, do a proper audit of the kind of investment that we now need as a province, and be able to then put solid plans together in order for us to be able to then drive this thing going forward. I'm saying to you that the fact of the matter is that if Panyaza continues in the same trajectory that we are on, we are not going to have anything different coming up in the next year. We are going to get some of the same. We are going to get into Komsres kids that are still, being displaced. You're going to get the Zamazamas that are really pushing people out of their homes, as we have seen in the Western taking place. You are going to get the police that are still sitting without the kind of, equipment that they need, as Chris Bosch would have actually picked up in the number of police stations that we would have visited. You would have Sergio still looking at the crippling school, infrastructure that is there. Nicole and Mervyn Serota will be talking about how is it that we are still not able to then complete housing projects that were supposed to be housing so many people. We'll be talking about, again, how this, apologies for that, how we actually then are failing in terms of our road infrastructure and to be able to then get that. And they're giving us an assurance that we are paying for the e-tolls, and the e-tolls are being paid somewhere else. But what they are not telling us is that the money that is now being paid is actually coming from the services that is supposed to be then rendered at the municipal level, at the provincial level. So these are some of the things that really have continued to cripple this government, and we're going to need to then come and address these things. Mike Moriarty will tell you that we have had companies that have been closing left, right, and center. The last one, or the latest one now, the British tobacco company that is now closing. And it's closing because of a number of things. They're closing because the infrastructure that is collapsing. They're closing because they are saying that government is not assisting in terms of dealing with the illicit goods that are being, that are being put out there, which means that they now have to find themselves, competing with illegal goods that have been allowed to fester all over our municipalities and our province. And Panyaza seems to not have a plan in terms of how to deal with this. And we are going to have more and more of these companies closing down unless if we are able to then put a tangible plan in front of investors and potential investors in order to attract them. We now need to then ensure that we stop the issues of, waxing lyrically about investment and projects, and actually then show on the ground what is it that government is doing to the best municipalities in South Africa, not only in Gauteng, but across South Africa. And you may continue to then do that. But I think that is testimony about what happens when the Democratic Alliance is in charge. The DA is able to then be in charge, turn things around, put capable people in place, able to then come up with systems that are able to then change the machinery of government and get government to work for the people and instead of working against the people. We now need to then fight the issues of crime in Gauteng, and we need to make sure that we offer our policemen and women better training. We need to offer them equipment to be able to then deal with the different kinds of crimes that they are dealing with. Ndate-san will tell you that we have had situations where even those that are supposed to be there dealing with illegal miners cannot even get closer to those illegal mines, because they say the firepower that those illegal miners having is very much, huge and different to what they are dealing with. They will tell you that they are not able to what we're finding our, as the case. Policemen and women are now sitting in offices or sitting in broken offices instead of being on the street driving and patrolling and making sure that you and me are safe, because the vehicles that they're driving around in are broken, and some of them are sitting for months and years in government garages. When we went to the Johannesburg Central, in fact, we found 2 of these vehicles parked right outside of the Johannesburg Central, not having been operating for about 2 weeks. One of them had actually even flat tires in front of the police station itself. You go to Roslyn, you find a police station that you have to walk over sewer to get into that particular police station. And that particular police station, you find that not only the boardroom is used as a debrief room, it is used as well where the victims of GBV are actually then interviewed. It is used as an operational room. It is used as storeroom. It is used where the detectives are sitting and doing the work. And you wonder why we're not able to then deal with the issues of crime here. So these are the kind of things that people of Gauteng should experience, people of Gauteng are experiencing, but yet you're not going to get that, as the true reflection of where we find ourselves in Gauteng. But I want to then talk about 2 things, and then we will be wrapping up. We have put together, which we will share, a document that talks about the true state of our municipalities as well, the true state of the province. And we have looked at how the municipalities are not able to then sustain themselves financially going forward. How they've actually now become less and less, capable of holding on to administrators that are able to then do the job because of the political influence that is there. And how some of these municipalities are at this point in time not even able to then, pay, some of the bulk service providers. Like they're not able to pay rent water. They're not able to then pay ESCOM, which is now a problem. Which has now become an endemic that needs to then be resolved, or that needs to be addressed. We have seen how Mfuleni is now sitting with over 1.8 billion rand in debt. The municipality, whatever they do, they're not going to be able to then recover that. You need provincial intervention. You need to make sure that there is a clear plan that is coming from the province, not just putting the municipality under administration, which they've done. I don't think that in the history of Gauteng of South Africa there's ever a municipality that has ever been put so long under administration, and yet nothing has improved. And this is why we are saying there's a clear plan in terms of what needs to then be done. The people of Gauteng will have a clear vision from the DA in terms of what we want to then do, what has failed, what is it that we are proposing as solutions, and how these things can be addressed going forward. I want to remind the people of Gauteng that we have written to President Cyril Ramaphosa when they put the bomb squad together, and we said to them, putting a bomb squad together without clear mandate and without clear direction in terms of what they will be able to then achieve is a zero-sum experience or experiment that you are embarking on. Where are we now? We are now after the G20. Can you ask what is it that they've been able to then achieve? Absolutely zero. What is it that they have been able to then help the Johannesburg to be able to then achieve? Absolutely zero. But we were clear in what we have put, and we can make that letter available again. Some of the steps that needed to be taken from the administration and dealing with the entities to putting money aside to then deal with the infrastructure and to monitor how this infrastructure is then being rolled out and to make sure that you root out the corrupt elements within that. But this hasn't been received very well. In fact, the response that we got from the president's office was that they don't engage in public with such things, but yet they fail to even engage with us in private to then deal with these things. And the question is, are they serious about dealing with the issues of lack of services to the people of Gauteng? Are they serious about dealing with issues of corruption? Are they serious about ensuring that the people's lives in Gauteng are then changed? So the Democratic Alliance is a clear plan. We have put a clear plan together that we have tried on a number of occasions to share, so that when we then talk about a state of the province address, we talk about how the people's lives have actually then changed for the better, how people can feel safe, how we can attract investment into the province, how the hospitals will be, places of, provision of life and not where people go and die, how our schools are supposed to be places of learning, not places where our children, even before they get there, some of them have to die, and when they get there, they get inadequate education. We need to be talking about how, our infrastructure is to then receive the kind of attention that it's supposed to. The Democratic Alliance is saying, when you go and listen to the so-called state of the province address, the truth must always prevail. The truth is that the people of Gauteng are saying enough is enough. There needs to be a clear alternative plan, and we are saying we are ready and we are here to then say here is a clear alternative plan. Some of these things have been costed. Some of them are things that we have seen where we are in government have been implemented and have been implemented successfully. The people of Gauteng will have an opportunity in later on this year when we go towards the election to continue to vote the same people who do the same thing over and over again and continue to fail, or they will put in government, they will put in place a government that will be able to then do what needs to be done. The plan is clear, the plan is here, and the people of Gauteng have now heard what is actually then really happening in this province of ours. They can go and ask Panyaza when he lies to then say, but you have said this, you have said that. Here is the truth. Are you ready to then admit that you have failed, that you don't deserve to be in government, that the people of Gauteng deserves much better? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will engage with the media, but perhaps we'll do it after this. May I